Johnny, new Polish film out in theaters, tells the real-life story of a Catholic priest named Jan Kaczkowski, a figure that was apparently equal parts controversial and loved depending on who you ask and on which side of the political barrier. And I say apparently because personally I didn't have a clue who he was before the movie, and I felt that the movie expected me to already have a level of familiarity, but we'll get to that. The film, despite being named Johnny and being marketed as the story of the priest, is really about another person, a man named Patryk, who at the beginning of the film lands in jail. He's been in and out of there for years. He's a small-time petty criminal, likes to drink, likes to take drugs, doesn't really have a real job, an overall loser. As part of his conditional release from jail, he is assigned work as a volunteer for the hospice that Father Jan is running. He meets the man and initially, of course, is dismissive, doesn't want to work there, doesn't want to do anything, but then starts to warm up to the priest and to the sick and old people living there in the hospice. He starts embracing the life philosophy based on love and compassion and becomes the better man for it. All the while, we, the audience, observe Father Jan through his eyes, seeing the journey of his own twilight years. Despite the young age, he is diagnosed with a brain tumor and has a very limited time to live. So the film opened in Poland a couple of weeks back to mixed critical reception. Some people have called it shallow and simplistic, and I can kind of see where that's coming from. To me, it's a case of a potentially interesting story told in a subpar way. I had a couple of different problems with the movie. To start off, I already mentioned that the film seems to assume that you are already familiar with the priest in question, with the subject, and that you know a lot about it. So when one of the opening scenes had an archbishop come up to be an absolute dick to Father Jan and screaming at him that he doesn't allow him to open the hospice, I was very confused because it's never explained in the film why the church authorities were at such odds with Jan, why he was perceived in such a strange way, why he was really so distinct. Because without the provided context, without an explanation, to me it just seemed like he is a regular good guy priest, exactly as each and every one of them claims to aspire to be. The movie never explained why that, or anything else in fact, was so problematic for the church. The character of Archbishop just pops up here and there to continue being an asshole for no apparent reason, and I found that strange. Similarly, at the beginning of the film, Jan receives the diagnosis and the doctor says that he has 6 months to live. Any single day after that will be a world record. And then the movie goes on, and the passage of time is never directly addressed. But at some point it becomes clear that it must have been more than 6 months already. And then there's another conversation where he gets some new test results and they say that the tumor is advancing and it's growing. So you think, holy shit, well, this is going to be the end now. But again, it keeps going, and only at the end of the film you learn that he lived something like 4 years after the initial diagnosis. And I mean, all this could have been addressed by a simple single line, something like a character asking him, so how's your health? Oh, I should have died already a year ago, but I keep on going. That would have been perfectly fine, it would have been enough. But there's just nothing of this sort. And again, this to me is an indication of the filmmakers assuming that the audience already has all the necessary information. Putting all of that aside though, I think that the story of Patryk in relation to Father Jan is on paper a good and inspiring one, but the movie kind of struggles to do anything impressive with it. I mean, it's hard to put into words, but it felt as if the story was very surface level and shallow. It never really delves deep into the priest's philosophy or Patryk's struggles. It's kind of one-dimensional, I thought, and I never once thought to myself, wow, that's an interesting point, that's a fascinating discussion, or this person raised a fascinating argument. For a movie that is so much about a spiritual person, there is surprisingly little actual spirituality in it. It's kind of run-of-the-mill, sentimental story of a person overcoming their nature and changing over time. And, you know, that isn't awful in itself. It is touching at times. There are opportunities to get emotional. Some of the humor works. The performances I thought were rather good. But then again, on a technical level, the film feels like a cheap inspirational story, one which we've seen so many times before, especially with the way that that it's shot, that it uses light and color in very predictable and kind of boring ways. Also, for some reason, there are like 10 different montage sequences set to various songs in the film, culminating with the ending, which is so cheesy, where the actor playing Kaczkowski is doing this slow walk towards the camera, interrupted by clips from the real life of the priest. I thought it looked like a pastiche of itself, honestly, and overall makes the movie look, I mean, the whole montage thing repeated over and over again, it makes the film look like a couple of music videos stitched together. So, yeah, I didn't like it very much, which is not to say that the story or the characters in question are bad or not interesting. I just think that the filmmakers don't do a very good job of telling that story, and it ends up being feeling pretty mediocre as a movie.